Okay, me, myself, and Fred is what this series is turning into. Right. What else can we begin with, if not the Inquisition?
This is the Divine's directive. Rebuild the Inquisition of old. Find those who will stand against the chaos.
So, the Inquisition. This is kind of a two-pronged entry, as there are two Inquisitions in Dragon Age. The first Inquisition, founded around 100 years before the Chantry, as a reaction to the fall of Tevinter and all the subsequent chaos that caused. And two, the new Inquisition, formed in the third Dragon Age game by Cassandra and company. So, the original Inquisition was created by followers of Andraste, following her betrayal by her husband Mafarath and her burning at the stake by the Magisters of the Tevinter Imperium. The world was in chaos after having been ravaged by the First Blight, which greatly weakened the Tevinter Imperium, allowing it to fall in Andraste's rebellion. The Inquisition was formed to restore order in a world gone mad, as Leliana tells us. These Inquisitors decided to roam the land, fighting blood mages, abominations, and anything they saw as dangerous magic. So, bearing in mind that the world had been conquered and ruled by a slave-happy empire of cruel and dictatorous, which my spell check is telling me is not a word, but fuck it, I can't think of anything better, dictatorous blood mages, yeah, the world had suffered quite a lot under the rule of magic. So you can sort of understand why they were pretty against the whole mage thing. Like, when you look at it from, like, the modern day perspective in the games, the Chantry seems weirdly against magic, but when you look at the history, Tevinter was pretty awful. They did, like, conquer the world, and they relied heavily on blood magic and slavery, and they were enslaving people mostly so they could be sacrificed in blood magic rituals. And, like, you know, all the world had known and seen was all the horrors that magic could inflict. So you can kind of understand that that's why the Inquisition came about, to, try to, quell all this dangerous magic and restore order. So, when Andrastian clerics began to form what would become the Chantry, they made common cause with the Inquisition. So the bulk of the Inquisition army joined with the clerics and were redubbed the Templars. Thus, the Chantry became a religion that also had its own standing army. So yes, the Inquisition is what became the Templars and the Seekers of Truth. So yes, the Templars mostly kept on doing what they had been doing, just with more oversight, and it was the former leaders of the Inquisition who became the Seekers, an elite branch of the Templars, who basically sort of oversee everybody. So the Templars are meant to guard the mages. The Seekers sort of oversee both the mages and the Templars. They're just sort of like meant to kind of make sure everybody's in line and doing what they're supposed to be doing. And all of this eventually also led to the founding of the Circle of Magi to help regulate magic and mages. So yes, as I have said, the original Inquisition sort of explains why the Chantry makes such an effort to repress and control magic and mages, because, you know, it was originally founded on countering the most dangerous aspects of magic. Which, like I say, the world had really suffered under. And it was only really later that it coalesced into a more organised religion with priestesses and chantries and scriptures and pews and collection plates and all that jazz. So yes, that's a brief overview of the original Inquisition. The modern Inquisition in Dragon Age is the movement created by Cassandra Pentagast and Leliana, the left and right hands of the Divine. At this point in the series, the Circle Mages have rebelled against the Chantry, and this has plunged most of Thedas into a bloody civil war, and sort of put the Chantry on the brink of collapse. Worth noting that the Templars have also broken away from the Chantry, so they've lost the Mages and the Templars. They've lost their army, and they've lost their prisoners. And, yeah, shit's hitting the fan, basically. So Divine Justinia attempts to arrange peace at the outset of Dragon Age Inquisition, only to be killed in an event dubbed The Breach, which is, yes, it's an assassination by Corypheus. The same incident kills most of the rest of the senior Chantry leadership, leaving no clear successor as Divine, at a time when Thedas is already plunged into chaos and violence. This same event leaves tears in the Fade across Thedas. The demons are pouring through. And the Chantry isn't really in much of a position to do naught about it, because they've lost their Templars. They are crumbling, and the Inquisition rises as sort of the only united force capable of battling the crisis. So, in the wake of the destruction of the Conclave at Haven, Cassandra and Leliana present a writ from Divine Justinia, authorising them to act and restore order. It was apparently one of Justinia's last official acts before she died. Cassandra reasons that she and Liliana are acting in Justinia's stead, and they can therefore reject competing claims to authority by the other factions of the now splintered Chantry. Cassandra pointedly says that she and Liliana were pledged to uphold not the Chantry itself, but the principles upon which it was founded, which is an important distinction. One of the things I just really love Cassandra for. Cassandra declares the Inquisition reborn. It will unite Thedas and restore order by sealing the Fade Rifts that are fracturing the land. And this is in keeping with the original purpose of the Chantry, to protect the world from the dangers of magic. So yeah, it's a pretty bold move. It's pretty gutsy by old Cassandra, because Cassandra and Liliana don't really have any greater claim to authority than the other Chantry factions they're competing against. Nor do they have much in the way of military force, at least not in the beginning, to back them up. They don't have a leader, at least in the beginning. They've kind of got an out going for them, really. So yeah, the Inquisition starts out with just a small group of Templars under Cullen's command, and a lot of refugees hiding out with them at Haven. And they're sort of at Haven just because that's kind of where they are, like that's where the Conclave was, and it's just sort of like, well, I suppose we're here now. And yes, Cassandra herself concedes that she could end up in the history books as either a traitor or a heretic. The Inquisition's main asset, however, is the sole survivor of the breach, someone who mysteriously has a magical green mark on their hand that can, somehow, seal the Fade Rifts. Which brings us neatly onto the Inquisitor.
Have our people been told?
They have. And soon, the world.
Commander, will they follow?
Inquisition, will you follow? Will you fight? Will we triumph? Your leader, your herald, your Inquisitor!
Again, this is a two-pronged topic, as there are actually two Inquisitors that we encounter, but shall we start with the one that we've already mentioned, the protagonist for Dragon Age Inquisition. So, you don't become the Inquisitor straight away in Inquisition. You are in fact the sole survivor of the Conclave explosion, stumbling out of a Fade Rift with a magical mark on your hand and a mysterious woman in the rift behind you. When you help to seal the breach, or at least partly seal it, many begin to proclaim you the Herald of Andraste, claiming that Andraste was the mysterious woman who pushed you through the rift and saved you. Though this is later found out to not be true, but shh, just let people keep believing it, it's fine. Yes, but the moniker Herald of Andraste does make you very unpopular with the Chantry, or rather the remnants of it that still cling to power in the wake of its near-total collapse. The Inquisitor can be a human, an elf, a canary, a dwarf, or even a mage, with non-mage humans being the only non-controversial choice as far as the Chantry is concerned. But I mean, they kind of don't approve of you either way because you're sort of proclaiming to be a prophet, and they're kind of like, nah, that sort of threatens our power a little bit. Like, we kind of want to be the voice of Andraste, and suddenly this random person rocks up claiming to be the voice of Andraste. It's a bit like, oh, small threat to our power there, love. We're not too happy about it. Yes, you are also always from Ostwick, whichever background you pick. So as a human, you are part of the noble Trevelyan family who rules Ostwick. As an elf, you are part of the Dalish tribe that camps around the city. You're actually the first to the Keeper if you play as a mage, and if you're playing as a human mage, you are in the Circle Tower at Ostwick, but you're still part of the Trevelyan family. As a dwarf, you are part of the Carter operating in Ostwick. You're a bit of a sort of petty thief and criminal, lyrium smuggler, all of that kind of jazz. And as a Canary, you are a Talvashoth mercenary born outside of the Cune, who are apparently operating in the Ostwick area. So throughout the events of the game, you will eventually be appointed as the Inquisitor and rule the Inquisition from your giant fuck-off castle in the mountains. It's a tough act to follow, Veilguard. I mean, I've seen the pictures of the headquarters in Veilguard, and they're impressive, but Skyhold is a friggin' tough act to follow. So the game gives the player a lot of leeway in how they approach all of this, so the Inquisitor can be a believer that they are in fact the Herald of Andraste, and they can proclaim this to anybody who dares question them. The Inquisitor can also be a religious doubter, or even a cynical charlatan who doesn't believe in Andraste or the Maker at all. Or you can be like a believer in the Maker, but you're sort of like, I don't really think I'm Andraste's herald. You know, you can kind of go whichever way you want with it. So the Inquisitor travels about the land, spreading the word of the Inquisition by sealing the Fade Rifts. They also find allies and agents, pick herbs for their garden, run little errands for local people, and generally be everybody's little runabout in that irritating way that usually happens in video games. when the player character is the one who's supposed to be in charge, but you're somehow never able to delegate anything. I mean, like, to be fair, the Inquisitor is the only one who can seal the rifts, right? Which is a clever little plot device, which I really like, because, like, you're the Inquisitor, you are ruling the world, right? Really, you should be sat safe in your castle with your army, protecting you, sort of making all the decisions, and, like, all of this busy work should be done by other people, but because you've got the mark on your hand, you have to go out into the field, right? That's clever. That's a clever plot device. I like that. But still... Sometimes all of the running around that you have to do, it's sort of like, really, can I not get somebody else to pick up all these shards? Like, can someone else not go out and get some elf root for me? Really, I have to do it? Really? Especially since every single time you walk past any Inquisition agents out in the field, they're just like stood around doing fuck all. Like, they're usually guarding piddly little chests that often don't even have anything in them. And you're just like, what the fuck are you doing? I'm running around clearing up everybody's problems and you're just stood there. Like, how? Come on, man. Like, why don't you lot get off your bloody arses and go and pick some fucking elf root? Jesus Christ. Why does it have to be me? Why does it have to be me? Because I'm the protagonist and therefore the only competent person in the game, as always happens. But anyway, this leads us on to the only other Inquisitor that we know of, the last Inquisitor of the First Inquisition, Ameridan. So Ameridan was an elven mage and close friend of Emperor Draken of Orlais when the Inquisition first joined the Chantry, but before it split into the Templars and the Seekers, because apparently there was a bit of a gap where, like, the Inquisition was still the Inquisition, but it was allied with the Chantry. Draken asked Ameridan to become the Inquisitor, as he was the one who could unite all. I mean, he was an elf, he was a mage, he was a devout Andrastian who worshipped the Maker, but he was also an elf of the Dales who worshipped the Evanurus. Kind of suggesting that the elves and the humans maybe weren't always as divided as some of the lore would suggest. I mean, we do know that most of the elves in the Dales only worshipped the Evanurus and were very suspicious of this kind of new Andrastian cult, because Ameridan says as much. And he was actually trying to sort of unite Orlais, the humans of Orlais and the elves of the Dales. He wanted them to be allies. But he was facing a lot of resistance from the elves because they were sort of suspicious of Orlais. They kind of thought Orlais was no better than the Tevinter Imperium. Having said that, though, the elves were freed from Tevinter by Andraste and followed her willingly. I don't think it's too much of a stretch to think that some of them might have started worshipping the Maker alongside the Evanurus. Particularly because when you have religions that have a lot of gods, usually they have room for one more god. And I did mention in the Evanurus entry that there is room in the religion for a Maker because they didn't believe that the Evanurus created the world, right? So there's room for a creator god. And I mean, you often find this in real-world history, where you have, like, a good example is the Vikings and the Saxons. So when the Vikings came to Britain, Britain was mostly Saxon by that point, and the Saxons were Christians. But the Vikings had lots of gods. And there was room in the Viking philosophy for one more god. Like, to them, it was just another god, whereas there wasn't room in the Christian philosophy for all the Viking gods, because to them there was only one true god. So you get this in, like, religions that have a lot of gods. There's always room for one more god. You're not necessarily betraying your gods by just letting another god in. So I think it's possible that there were elves who worshipped both, like, beyond just Ameridan. Yeah, so sometimes I wonder, I mean, you do get the impression from the lore that the elves were very closed off to the humans. And I mean, they had been enslaved by Tevinter, which was a human empire, so that's kind of understandable. But, I sometimes wonder if it was more the Chantry and Orlais that alienated the elves than the other way around, because there wouldn't be room in the Andrastian philosophy for the elven gods. Plus, I do have my theory that Orlais deliberately provoked a war with the elves just because they wanted the land that the elves occupied. I do kind of hold to that. That's not in the lore anywhere, that's a headcanon, but I kind of think that seems likely to me, that the only reason that they were so aggressive towards the elves was so that the elves would attack them and then they could just go to war with them and take their land because they wanted to expand their empire. I kind of think that's likely. But anyway, Ameridan disappeared mysteriously. And was never found despite extensive searching by Emperor Draken. So, during the Jaws of Hakon DLC, the modern-day Inquisitor finds Ameridan trapped in time and can converse with him. Yes, they can converse with their ancient counterpart, which is quite nice. Learning many interesting things, including that the Seekers of old welcomed mages amongst their ranks, and that Ameridan had been planning to try and strengthen alliances between Orlais and the Dales, as I have mentioned, believing that humans and elves should be united. Which makes you wonder how differently things might have turned out if Ameridan hadn't disappeared, and had in fact returned as a leader of his people. You know, might have made all the difference in the world, who knows? Anyway, moving on. Isabella. Hello, my gorgeous girl.
You see, sweetness, men are only good for one thing. Women are good for 6.
Isabella is a potential companion in Dragon Age 2 and a Ravani pirate, captain of the Siren's Call. Or she was, until it was shipwrecked in a storm off the coast of Kirkwall. But we will get to that. Isabella was born in Ravane, and her birth name was something that I cannot pronounce, but I will give it a go. Naisha? Nasha? Naisha? I'm gonna go Naisha. Naisha sounds about right, right? Yeah, let's go with that. So, she never knew her father, and her mother was a thief and petty criminal who often posed as a Ravani seer and was constantly on the move, presumably to keep herself from being strung up by the people that she stole from. She did eventually turn away from crime, however, and instead converted to the Qun, something Isabella did not agree with at all. And when Isabella refused to convert as well, her mother sold her into marriage to an Antivan lord. As you do. I feel like they do things differently in the north of Thedas. Like, you know, oh, my daughter won't convert to my religion, so I'm going to sell her to an Antivan lord. Yeah, okay. So Isabella gives a few different versions of how much her mother sold her for. I believe one of them mentions a goat. I can't quite remember. And I couldn't find it. I was desperately searching for it. I know at some point she mentions that her mother sold her for something and a goat, but I couldn't find it. Something, was it like 3 sovereigns and a goat or something like that? I can't remember. Yes, but she does at one point tell Varric that her mother actually gave her away in exchange for the promise that she would be looked after and nothing more. So, I don't know whether that's better or worse. Like, is it better for your mother to sell you to an Antivan lord or give you away to an Antivan lord for nothing at all? I don't know which is worse, to be honest. They're both pretty bad. So, Isabella's new husband took her to Antiva and kept her as a trophy wife, expecting her to adhere to the lifestyle of a noble-born lady. Now, exactly why he bought/took a peasant thief girl from Ravane rather than just marrying a noble lady, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, when I say he's noble, to be fair, Antiva is run by the merchant princes, who are not, like, royalty/nobility, really. They're just people who are really rich. Like, if you become really rich and you become really powerful in Antiva, that's kind of how it works. So he might not have been nobility in the sort of normal sense of the word, but I'm not 100% sure. We don't really know that much about him. But even so, like, I don't get why he would buy this random peasant girl, unless there was more backstory to it than that we just don't know about. Like, why not just marry someone? I don't know. I don't understand. Maybe he just took a liking to her. Who knows? Yes, we do know that Isabella was only 19 at the time and did not exactly take to her new life. Her new husband soon realised that she was a free spirit and therefore more trouble than she was worth. He kind of wanted her to just sit there and shut up and look pretty, and she wasn't having any of it. Yes, so he planned to hand her out to various business associates of his to use as they saw fit, which is a bit friggin' ominous. But yeah, before he had the chance to do that, however, he was assassinated by the Antivan crow Zevran, who also happened to be Isabella's lover. So Isabella goes back and forth on whether she actually ordered the execution or whether Zevran just did it out of the kindness of his heart. Sometimes she says she had nothing to do with it, other times she's like, yeah, I absolutely ordered his execution. I don't know. Either way, Isabella fled the same night with 2 daggers gifted to her by Zevran and a sack of stolen jewellery that she used to bribe some sailors into helping her steal her husband's ship, the Siren's Call. Knowing nothing about sailing or fighting at the time, she found a captain to command the ship for her, and it was him who taught her how to be a pirate and who gave her the nickname Isabella, which she decided to keep. She eventually killed him and took the ship for herself. As you do. It's very Sith, isn't it? That's like apprentice kills the master and takes over. I kind of like that. She went on to sail the 7 seas, or however many seas Thedas has, and become an infamous pirate and master duelist. Yeah, so we know that she spent sort of 10 years at sea, having numerous adventures, spending time in various prisons, and even visiting the Pearl in Denerim, where the hero of Ferelden can briefly encounter her, learn the duelist specialisation off of her, and potentially sleep with her. In fact, I'm kind of sad that she doesn't turn up in Inquisition as a potential fumble for the Inquisitor, because then she could have had the hat trick, you know? She could have slept with all three of them. Maybe even at the same time. That sort of feels like an Isabella kind of a thing. But, no. Actually, the Inquisitor doesn't have much potential for that kind of fun at all, really. Sort of like, I mean, there's plenty of romance options for the Inquisitor, but there's not much, like, casual sex options for the Inquisitor, so, you know. It's another reason why it's the weakest of the first three games, to be honest, but I digress. Isabella would go on to steal the Tome of Kosloon, a sacred Qunari artifact. She is then shipwrecked at Kirkwall, losing both her ship and her crew and getting mixed up with Hawke and the gang, potentially. Although, interestingly, you don't actually have to recruit her. Or even meet her. You don't have to speak to her at all if you don't want to. But the game would be a lot less fun that way, to be honest. I'm not going to go into all of the particulars of the Qunari storyline, as we really don't have time for it in this video. Instead, we're going to focus more on Isabella's personality. So Isabella values freedom above all else. Everyone's freedom, not just her own. She thinks mages should be free, elves should be free. She really hates the Qun, because she doesn't see that as freedom. She's against slavery. She frees a bunch of slaves who she sort of accidentally ended up transporting, but she didn't know that they were slaves. She doesn't express much of an opinion on the Mage Templar situation that's kind of unfolding in Kirkwall, but if Bethany is made a Circle Mage, she will comment on how she's not free anymore. Which seems to bother Isabella more than it bothers Bethany. Isabella also kind of believes in letting people deal with their own shit and not interfering too much. Like, she will often disapprove if Hawke sticks their oar in too much and starts, like, offering help to random strangers, as you do as a protagonist. You just kind of, like, overhear a conversation and be like, I'm the person to solve all your problems. Which, to be fair, is a bit weird. Like, I kind of like the fact, because mostly people ignore that in video games, where the protagonist just kind of rocks up and just goes, I can sort that out for you. Like, that's weird. That would be very annoying in real life. Somebody like that in real life would probably get punched in the face a lot, because it's just like, that would just be really irritating. And I kind of like the fact that Isabella just goes, stop it, you're being weird, alright? Just stop offering to fix everybody's problems. She often disapproves of you when you start, like, offering to help people, unless you're doing it for money. If you're doing it for money, she's fine. She approves of that. Yeah. So Isabella doesn't like things too serious, so she tries not to get sort of mixed up. That's probably why she doesn't comment much on the Mage Templar thing, because she just sort of like, I just don't want to have to think about it, you know, which I can relate to. I'm a bit like that. That's why I don't watch the news. Yes, she also tries not to get too tied down. She has massive commitment issues, perhaps unsurprisingly, considering all that's happened to her. But despite this, I always think she does seem to form very strong and intense attachments to certain people. Notably Bethany, Merrill, particularly Merrill, Hawke, of course, Varric, perhaps even Aveline. I sort of think it's odd. It's sort of like, I feel like she's probably not had much genuine connection in her life. And you get the impression that when she likes someone, either romantically or platonically, either way, she sort of latches onto them, and she sort of wants that deep connection, but at the same time she's terrified of it. You know what I mean? So she sort of forms these very intense bonds with people. She's quite protective of a lot of people, particularly women. Particularly people who I think she sees as like a sort of little sister, Bethany and Merrill particularly. She does seem to get, yes, very protective of certain people. But then at the same time you get the impression that it sort of bothers her, because she's sort of like, I don't really want to be caring about people, I want to just, you know, be free of all of this kind of attachment nonsense. But at the same time, you know, she's got a very... You know what, there's some people will be listening to this going, what the fuck are you talking about, she's a monster, because some people really don't like her. I think she's got a deeply compassionate heart. She's just had a really messed up life, that's all, and it's sort of like, yeah, damaged her a little bit, but you know, she's also very non-judgmental. I find Isabella very non-judgmental. She's kind of happy for people to just do what they feel like doing and be themselves, and she's fine with it. Mage, elf, blood mage in Merrill's case, she's just like, you know what, just let them do their thing, so long as they're not doing anything that she particularly hates, like enslaving people. She's just kind of like, you know, just leave people be. Just let them do whatever it is they're doing. And I like that about her. So, yes, she can be romanced in Dragon Age 2 by Hawke, either as a casual fling or as a genuine committed relationship, though she takes some persuading. As with all the characters, you can have a friendship romance or a rivalry romance. I have seen some people argue that the rivalry romance is better. Those people are insane. If you go down the rivalry route with her, you spend most of the game telling her that she is not a good person, that she's not good enough, and that she needs to change her ways. Which is not what a relationship should be. You know, if you want someone, you want them for who they are, not for who you think they could be. Like, I don't know, it bothers me. The rivalry romance bothers me. I don't think it's a healthy one at all. The friendship romance is great. But, yeah. Not much annoys me, you know, but it really irks me when people say that you should do the rivalry romance with Isabella. I'm like, no, you spend the whole time trying to fundamentally change who she is as a person, which sort of means, really, you should probably be romancing someone else. Like, it just bothers me. I don't like it. One final note, though. If you get a side-on view of Isabella in the game, you will find that the animators added a beautiful little detail when she's running. If you sort of click on her, so you're controlling her, and then you put a nice side view on, and then you make her run, she bounces. I love that. She bounces. It's great. It's that kind of attention to detail that makes a game worth playing, I think, in my opinion. Well done, Dragon Age developers. And finally, this brings us on to Imshale. Ooh, I'm a bit excited about this one. So, Imshale is a desire demon, though he prefers to identify as a choice spirit, which has something to do with him giving people the choice to act upon their desires or not, or something. I don't know. Demon logic. Like, he has this whole speech where he's sort of like, well, you know, everybody has desires, but not everybody acts upon them. I give people the choice to act upon them, so I'm not a desire demon, I'm a choice spirit. Like, you're a desire demon, mate. Just shut up, man. However. Anyway, he first appears in the book The Masked Empire, where he is summoned by a Dalish clan who want him to reactivate the Alluvian network. He initially refuses, but later crafts a keystone for Empress Selene that allows her to reactivate any Alluvian she wishes. The Alluvian network later goes on to play a major role in the Elven Underground in Orlais, the attempted invasion of the south by the Qunari, and finally Solus's plans to do whatever it is he's going to do. Imshale therefore played no small part in the future of Thedas, and yet he is a little minor character who can easily be missed. His role is like most major in the Masked Empire. He does appear in Inquisition, but like, if you haven't read the Masked Empire, you would sort of miss his involvement, really. So yes, Imshale is encountered and killed by the Inquisitor in Emprise de Leon during Inquisition, although you do not have to kill him. You can let him, yes, you can sort of leave him and let him frolic the land, doing whatever it is that demons do, but yeah, it's just a little side mission though in Inquisition where you encounter Imshale and you sort of fight him. He's the only desire demon who you encounter in Inquisition, actually. As an important note about him. They sort of stopped putting desire demons in, possibly because the desire demon, the original design for the desire demons, they've got their tits out quite prominently, and it's not very YouTube friendly, and I think they thought that people wouldn't live stream as much if they had a lot of desire demons in. Although they put nudity in, like, the romance scenes, which is like, okay. But yeah, I think they thought that people wouldn't live stream as much if they put the desire demons in. And I did actually have a thumbnail removed way back when I first started this channel. I had a thumbnail removed because it had a desire demon in it. So, like, yeah, the desire demons are not very YouTube friendly. But yes, Imshale is the only desire demon in Inquisition. However, the thing that I personally think is the most interesting about Imshale is that he is one of the Forbidden Ones. So, the Forbidden Ones consists of 4 ancient demons that were apparently the first demons to come into contact with human mages. It is even said that they may have first taught humans blood magic. The same is also said of the old god Dumat, you may recall. In the game, there is some speculation over whether the Forbidden Ones are related to the Elven Forgotten Ones, the enemies of the Evanuris, who were banished to wherever it is they were banished to. So there are definitely parallels between the Forbidden Ones and the Old Gods, and maybe even the Forgotten Ones too. They might all be the same thing. The Forbidden Ones might be Old Gods who somehow escaped the whole imprisoned under the earth and turned into archdemons thing. Yeah. All of this probably isn't making that much sense. So, like, in the Dumat entry back in D, I sort of theorised that the Old Gods and the Elven Forgotten Ones might be the same thing, because when Solus created the Veil, he banished the Evanuris to the heavens, and he banished the Forgotten Ones to the abyss, right? And then you've got the old gods who are locked away beneath the earth. Now, the Chantry says that the old gods were locked away by the Maker, but who knows? The Chantry also says that the old gods weren't locked away when the humans originally summoned them, which, if that is true, that would debunk the theory, because the forbidden ones were already... forgotten ones were... Oh my god, I'm confusing myself here. The forgotten ones were already locked away by that point, because humans appeared after the creation of the Veil. Yes, I'm sure this is making sense. But then you've got the forbidden ones, who are these 4 ancient demons. And I mean, it's theorized in the game. This isn't me theorizing. It's theorized in the game that the forbidden ones might have a connection to the forgotten ones. And I think the forgotten ones might have connection to the old gods. Maybe they're all the same thing. I don't know. I think I've confused myself. I don't think I've made that very clear, have I? But anyway. So, the forbidden ones consists of Imshale, Gax Kang, another one that I'm now going to try and pronounce, Spenkek? Yeah, let's go with that. That's quite a fun word to say. I don't know if that's how you're supposed to pronounce it. Spenkek. Is that how I pronounced it the first time? Anyway, that one. I'll put it on the screen. That thing. Yes. And the formless one. So there's 4 of them. So Gax Kang can be encountered and killed in Origins. Spenkek can be encountered and killed in Dragon Age 2, and Imshale can be encountered and killed in Inquisition, which leaves the formless one for Veilguard. Now, in the book that they brought out, it was a collection of short stories called Tevinter Nights, and one of those stories alludes to an ancient and powerful demon that is bound beneath the city of Minrathous. And in the story, the demon almost gets out, but then they, sort of salvage it at the last moment. And it's a bit of an anticlimactic end, and as I was reading it, I was like, this has definitely got to become relevant in Veilguard. I mean, the fact that there is an ancient and powerful demon imprisoned beneath the city of Minrathous must come up in Veilguard. Surely, they can't just leave that. And for the brief moment that the demon actually appears in the story, he is described as strangely formless. He's sort of like a shadow moving across the walls. And he is described as being, particularly ancient and particularly powerful, and perhaps something that's just a little bit more than a regular demon. So, I've got a theory that he's the formless one, and that we're going to encounter him in Veilguard. And if that doesn't turn out to be true, I will be bitterly disappointed. I mean, maybe he's not the formless one, but if he doesn't turn up, if that doesn't become a quest that we have to deal with the ancient demon imprisoned beneath Minrathous, I will be very annoyed. Anyway, so that was I. We have a few honourable mentions. We have Lady Sold, Connor's mother and Arl Eamon's wife from the Redcliffe quest. We have Irving, first enchanter of the Ferelden Circle in Origins. We have Ermenric, who is a Templar and brother of Ban Alfstanna, who you can encounter in the dungeons of the Earl of Denerim's estate during Origins. And of course, Iron Bull. I can't believe I missed out Iron Bull. There's a lot of companions I'm having to miss out, just because they're too big topics, really, to be able to fit into these videos that I'm doing on a very tight timescale. But doing these videos has given me a sort of certain joy of doing lore videos, so I'm thinking of maybe doing a deep dive on all the companions, one at a time. I think that might be quite fun. So Iron Bull will probably get his moment, but sorry, there was no room for you here, darling. I'm so sorry. And I do need to thank Fred once again, because he did do a bit of work on the Inquisition and Inquisitor entries. I mean, I did rewrite a lot of it. But, some of his stuff stayed in there. I'm sure I kept, at least 2 or 3 of the jokes. So, thank you, Fred. Your help is very much appreciated. And I shall see you tomorrow, my lovelies, for the letter J, which, from memory, I think that was quite a good one. I think it was a good one, the old letter J. So I shall see you then, my darlings.